in the background, like an idiot. I was raised in Oldham, and I'd gone off to make a difference in the rest of the world. I thought, okay, I'm a child of my town, I've done all right for myself, and off I went. Off I went to work for government, off I went to work across the world, and for 20 years or so, I was good at what I did. And I came back. Warren Bates is here somewhere, and he phoned me up, messaged me, kept mithering me, wouldn't go away. Because what I've done is I've come back to my town, my mother's terminally ill, and I came back to my hometown to look after my mother, and the mother of my daughter wanted to raise her child where she was raised. So I came back. I came back to a town that in many ways I'd left behind, and the first thing that happened within a couple of weeks was a friend of mine, a friend's wife contacted me from the local mosque, mosque, too embarrassed to have the conversation with her husband. The chairman of the mosque was a convicted sex offender in plain sight, and she was horrified as to what would happen for her children. Me spending 20 years thinking everything's okay and the system is there to protect you, believing the system is there to protect you, said, don't be stupid. Tell you what, give me his name and I'll get in touch with the Lado. You all know what the Lado is, yeah, the local authority designated officer. I'll get in touch with the Lado. I'll find out. There's no way he's a convicted sex offender. Sent an email, contacted them. They knew who I am. I've got, I was a man of impeccable, reputation.
You are.
Well, I am. And you know what she did? Straight away she responded, Raja, I'm horrified, I'll get back to you. She never got back to me. I then went and found out. My friends from Greater Manchester Police are here. Well, for a stint in my life, I worked with the Office for Security and Counter-Terrorism. So I pulled in some favours.
What are you doing about it?
I pulled in some favours.
What am I doing about it? I'm not fucking complaining about the fucking Muslims and everything. Fucking
He's a
being fucking
convicted sex
paedophiles.
offender.
That's a load of fucking guff, man.
Not only is he a convicted sex offender,
Right,
he was a former Labour
Fucking millions
Party
of fucking
candidate
wives like that.
in the election.
What are you doing about it?
And this is where I ended
And
up.
now they're here.
This is
All you're
where I
doing is
ended
just
up
putting
slightly
more on
different
somebody else.
That's your opinion.
Than many of you. I understand what this is about. It isn't just about the abuse of children. It isn't just about the abuse of children. It is why they've been allowed to be abused. Billy talked about it. Billy raised it straight away. He talked about Cyril Smith. These are people in positions of power who are allowed to exploit our children, and they are exchanged. And in my town, as I found out on the journey I went on, our children are exchanged for sackfuls of postal votes. It's as simple as that. White working class girls in my town do not matter because they have no political currency. In fact, they are political currency. Right? And so I thought, okay, 20 years of doing what I've done, what shall I do? Very simple. I'll hold them to account. I don't speak at demonstrations. Not because I don't believe they're not powerful. I don't speak at them because that's not where I'm effective. I'm effective in holding politicians to account. And you know what I've done in my town? I've mobilised my town, and council leader after council leader after council leader has been voted out at the ballot box. And we voted them out. We voted them out on one issue and one issue alone. They covered up for the grooming and gang rape of our children. There's no ifs, there's no buts, they covered up. And you know what they covered them up for? They claimed community relations. Well, no community I belong to will turn and look the other way whilst children are being raped. No chance, absolutely no chance. And you know what my friends at Greater Manchester Police have been doing to me since? Dragging me out of my house. I'm 50 years old. I have an MBE for the work I've done in safeguarding our country from extremists and terrorists. They've been locking me up because I'm effective.
Telling the truth.
Because I'm effective. And I've took them out, and I've took them out, and I've took them out, and we're going to take them out and keep taking them out. And next May, we'll take the council off them. We are we will force a public inquiry. And what that public inquiry will uncover, and this is why it's relevant to all of you, what that public inquiry will uncover is that the highest level of politicians and police and press have all worked together to cover this up, and they covered it up because it goes back to this. And I'm sorry, I'm a brown man, and I'm sorry because white working class people in this part of the world do not matter. And I'll tell you why you don't matter. You don't matter because you're not organised. You don't matter because not enough of you vote. You don't matter because not enough of you stand up for yourselves. You don't matter because the community I come from, I'll be honest with you, the community I come from, even those in my community hate me, will not denounce me. I belong to them. If I turn up to someone and I said I'm coming there, 100 people will turn up. You've lost that. The working class, the white working class have lost that. You were the most powerful. This democracy in this country exists because of the sacrifices of your forebears, and you've lost that. You've absolutely lost it, and you need to find it back. You need to get it back. And you need to vote. What we've done in Oldham is unprecedented in the country. We've mobilised independent candidates. These are just normal people. No different than you, no different than any of you. We've mobilised them and we've put them up against the strongest Labour Party councillors, and we've beat them each time. Each time we've beat them.
Let Labour out!
You've got Tony Lloyd here, yeah? He's your bloody MP. How on earth did Tony Lloyd become Roachdale MP? Come on,
I'll throw it back at you.
Because he turned a blind eye as police and crime commission.
Yeah, backhander.
Tony Lloyd, and I'll link it here. Tony Lloyd turned up to a meeting in Oldham involving a man called Hughie MacDonald. Hughie MacDonald was a councillor in the town. He was also the chief magistrate for 25 years. Decent bloke. I knew him. Sorry, 40 years magistrate. 40 years magistrate. And what he did was when he found out that the grooming gangs in Oldham, by Shabir Ahmed and his mates, who were from Oldham, by the way, Shabir Ahmed was from Oldham, he worked for the council. He worked for the council based out of, seconded to the Pakistani Community Centre in Glodwick. He sold children. He sold children whilst he worked for the council. They hid it. Not only did they hide it, we exposed, and this is from Hughie MacDonald, he got sacked. Jim McMahon sacked him. Tony Lloyd attended a meeting and sacked him. And why did he sack him? Because Hughie MacDonald, a man in his 70s or his 80s, from my town, 40 years a magistrate, spoke out and said this is wrong. Parents need to know that their children are not safe. And you know why they covered it up for? Community relations. I'll translate what community relations means in my town, because it means the same in your town. Community relations means votes. It means sackfuls of postal votes. That's all it means. That's all this is about. And the only way you're going to win here is by doing what we do in Oldham. You go from Barrow, wherever else from. You've got to hit them where it hurts. And the only way of hitting them where it hurts is standing for, as candidates. None of us want to be politicians, I get that. Not one of us want to be politicians, but you have no choice.
You won't let me.
You have no choice, you've got to stand. You've got to stand, and the people around you have got to mobilise. And if we can help, we will, because we've got a template. The first time when we took out Sean Fielding, it's great. They said, it had nothing to do with you, nothing to do with the CSE. I said, all right, it was nothing to do with the CSE. Why was he defeated? He went to the national newspapers. He went to the Sunday Times, crying to the Sunday Times. The Sunday Times wrote to me with a long list of allegations and accusations about me. Apparently I'm a far-right activist. Right? I'm a far-right activist. You'll find me in the mosque on a Friday afternoon, but apparently I'm a far-right activist. Do you know what I did to her? I sent her a photograph. I said, right, whatever the F you want, here's a nice photograph of me. So make sure I can show it my mum. The council threatened to sue me. In fact, the council, in partnership with Greater Manchester Police over there, set up something called Operation Hexagon. One day Operation Hexagon will come out for what it is. It is an unlawful police operation that has surveillance on me and every member of my community that speaks out against the cover-up of the gang rape of children. Dougie Satter, he'll tell you, Operation Hexagon is run by the police.
Do you know Operation Messenger?
I know Operation Messenger.
Yeah.
I know Operation Messenger in the sense that when I first met one of the police officers who didn't believe what I was saying, and he asked me to meet with him. He was called James Faulkner. He was the lead police officer in Oldham. He's quit, he's left. He wants nothing to do with the cover-up.
What was Operation Messenger all about though? That was taking girls, take them to Bernardo and then...
Operation Messenger is an award-winning intervention on CSE. Anything that comes up and they tell me it's award-winning, I think you know it failed completely. It failed completely. It failed completely. But what we forced when Sean Fielding went was we forced Andy Burnham into this assurance review. He didn't want to do it. I wanted Andy Burnham exposed. And we've now exposed Andy Burnham. And I'll tell you what's going to happen with Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham will never become Prime Minister. And the reason Andy Burnham will not become Prime Minister is because his assurance review in Oldham that he signed off is proven to be a cover-up. Andy Burnham was involved in covering up the cover-up of child abuse. That man will now not become Prime Minister, and he knows it. He knows it. So, it's great, 100 of you here. But please, if you want to be the difference in Roachdale, if you want to deal with this, I agree, all of that. The depart, no support, I agree, all of that. If you want to hold them to account, you've got to come forward and stand as politicians, and you've got to vote them out. And once you vote them out, then you matter. Once you have a political voice, then you matter. And your forebears understood this. That's why they went and fought, gave their lives so you can vote. That's why they understood it. And you need to do it again. You need to vote. You need to put your own candidates up, and you need to vote, and we will come and help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. Wonderful speech, mate. As I knew it would be, but that's why I asked you to come.
It's all right, mate. No
Thank
problem.
you very
Anytime.
much. Again, round of applause for Roger, guys, please. So the next guy got speaking, my mate Nick from Turning Point UK. So Nick's, this is the first time he's been to one of my events to speak. So I'm as eager as you lot to hear what he has to say. Please give him a warm Roachdale welcome and a Oldham welcome as well. To Nick. That's great, thank you so much. Thank you for that. Look at that. Oh, I like to walk when I talk, and I'm going to stand there and be all awkward now. I really want to walk. How long to the lead?
Step in front. Take a step in front.
I can do a couple of steps that way. I wish I'd worn sunscreen on my head. I left London this morning, it was, yeah, anyway, so I'm going to get fried. So how do I follow that? Can I ask, sorry, what was the gentleman's name? So we've got, I presume, a political type that knows infinitely more than me. We've got a survivor. I'm not a survivor. I've had different battles and challenges. And we've got people in front of me that know infinitely more than I do. So how do I follow that? So I wrote this over the last week. That was fun, going down the rabbit hole of Roachdale. That was a fun. I thought I was depressed last week.
honestly, the state of it. And then I went down the rabbit hole of Telford and Oldham, and of course, for those of you that don't know Turning Point, I run the organisation with our fantastic CEO, and I've had to learn an awful lot in the last 2 years since entering into politics. We're an activist organisation, and our number one campaign at the moment is to expose the indoctrination and grooming of minors. You all heard of Drag Story UK? Yeah. What do we think of that? So we do that, and we put our necks on the line, taking on the far left. They're not very nice people. And the police...
On a park!
Yeah.
On a road,
On a
that's
road,
it.
yeah.
On a road. Yeah.
Vomit. The police are alright sometimes. Bless them. Sometimes they're alright. So, yeah, how do I follow that? So, what a talk that was. So, I decided to join my local political association in January. Why? Because I thought I'd better get off my arse and make some change happen. Did I want to do it? Not really. Is there any money in it? Nope. Do we all work round the clock anyway? Yep. Is life hard enough? Yep. But I did. So I applaud you. I joined my local association at the start of this year. A couple of months ago I was made deputy chairman, and now I'm standing to be a councillor in my local area. In the US, there's a guy called Dan Schultz and Steve Bannon who's got his war room, and they have precinct strategy, and I heard about that, so I decided over here we'd have constituency strategy, and we would reclaim, we would take back that which is ours. There are many enemies which we face, but going back to that fantastic talk there, I can't trump that, I can't beat that, and I can't beat Billy's story as well. So I'm thinking to myself, I've got this speech in front of me, and I'm kind of thinking, well, what on earth do I say? What do you want to hear from a guy like me that runs an organisation like Turning Point UK that believes in limited government, low taxation, personal responsibility, and what I dub family, faith, freedom? I won't bore you with it, guys. It's about politics today, or is it? Is it a left-wing run constituency up here? Is it? Okay. Is there a link between the grooming gangs and where they set up? Absolutely. Cool. So it is about politics. Well, then I'm the man for the job. Great. So we can get started then. Cool. So we're all on side. So I'll be very honest with you in my introduction. That rabbit hole that I just mentioned, utterly awful. Billy ran through the numbers with me. I'm not going to lie, I'm not really a numbers guy. So when you hear about that many victims and that many arrests and potential charges and just the nonsense behind it all, I'd argue that this is a cultural problem, guys. What does everyone think? Do you think this is a cultural problem? What do politicians do with numbers in the economy? What do they do? It's their little tool, isn't it? It's their little tool, because you can just do the little plate spinning juggling act. This is about culture. So I'm writing my little speech and I'm going through all this, and thank you so much to Billy for his education and his help as I've become more and more versed in this situation. It was absolutely horrifying what I read and what I found, etc. And my first version for today was to denounce evil in the following forms: interfering with minors, two-tier policing, liberal sentencing, and state corruption. That was my first version. Then I went down another rabbit hole, deleted it. Then I went down another rabbit hole, rewrote it, deleted it. Then another one, deleted it. And it turns out that after weeks of researching, I still don't have a clue compared to Billy and to other people that actually know what happened here and what's happening in other parts of the UK. And that's what I wanted us to focus on today. Is it possible that at a certain time in the UK there was a certain demographic with certain motives that set up to do heinous, evil acts in the UK? Is that possible? Wherever they set up, for whatever reason, whoever they were, is it possible? So that's not beyond the realms of comprehension. Is it possible that that's a business model? Is it a racket? Is it a mafia? Right. Right, it's a business, right? Okay, the fact that it's twisted and demonic and evil and awful, right, okay. Is it possible it's happening elsewhere in the UK? Is it possible that something starts and then it's learned and then copied and then replicated elsewhere? So this isn't about 100 people, someone like me, Roachdale. That's not what this is about. This is about something that is potentially happening all across the UK. Organisation, right. So then we've got a fantastic point that was made: get involved and do something. Well, that doesn't change what's already happened. So that's the long-term blue sky, right? So we should all aspire to that. In terms of justice, what's the likelihood of justice, Billy? Are we going to get everyone arrested and locked up?
No. They'll lock the groomers up, yeah, but it's not just them that need to be in the dock, it's the people that allowed it to happen.
So we'll get the right people in the dock. Will they hang from the noose, or will they get liberal sentencing?
They'll all walk out of court.
What should they get?
Hang them!
What should they get, guys? Say it.
Hang them!
Hang them.
Lessons will be learned.
Lessons will be learned. We're taking steps. Valuable lessons have been learned. We're taking crucial steps. We understand where we've gone wrong. You remember that, yeah? All of that stuff, yeah? 20 years of that. You're a better man than me. You're a better man than me. So I'm writing this script over and over again all week, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute. So some things in life are just too horrific, too horrendous, and you just got to kind of power through. But what if change is possible, and what if something can be done? So the ultimate is that we want the right people in the dock, and we know who those people are: Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, all the Keir Starmer, Tony Lloyd. Yeah, so this isn't political at all. No, it's not political. Honestly, it's really not. It's not political at all.
Just happens to be everyone he mentions part of the Labour Party.
It's so awkward, isn't it? And that there are people in this crowd far more knowledgeable than me about that. And again, if I stand here and bash the left, it's like, okay, fine, we get it, Nick. You're right-wing conservative. Okay, fine. But this isn't about politics. And I'm rewriting this all week long. And every single time I do my research and watch something and learn something, it's politics, guys. It is. And the man's just said it. Spot on. Political currency. And councils and what they do and don't get away with, and backhanders and corruption. Is there anything more evil in this world than the indoctrination, abuse, or the destruction of innocence?
Yeah, hiding it.
Covering it up. Covering up. So, how about facilitation? How about enablement? How about turning the blind eye? Yeah, complicit. Exactly.
No, guilty of crimes against humanity.
Absolutely.
Save our children.
Absolutely. So I'm doing all this, right? I told Billy, I said, you're going to want me to stop talking. You're going to be bored to tears. But I'm doing all this, right? And I'm trying to. Who am I? I'm no one up here. I'm from down south, right? You probably all hate me for that. I'm just joking. Who's this posh twat? Yeah, literally. I know. I'm just joking. And again, thank you so much, Billy, for inviting me. And we'll crack on now. So I want to come at this from a cultural angle. The specifics around the importance of culture. I personally have a mantra that economy should be second and culture should be first. If you don't have culture, you don't have anything. So again, the point's just been made about the importance of culture and about getting up and going and doing something, etc. Who thinks that we have a cultural problem in the UK with regard to this topic? Is it coming away from all the bad news, because we've just done all that, and actually let's start talking solutions now, and we've got a problem with culture? Is the problem culture? Right, so silencing, cancel culture, intimidation, threatening, censorship, and obviously everyone's scared that you'll be branded as far right and you'll be locked up, which is a myth, by the way. It's not something we should. Concerned parents, concerned citizens. You might call yourself conservative one day potentially. That's not a crime, guys. As much as they try and make it out to be, that's really not a crime. But I understand that it's. I understand that there's a lot of fear and that there's a lot of hostility. It's very combative and adversarial out there at the moment. I understand that. So my question becomes this, and this is what I was thinking about. At what point do the fathers in Britain start thinking, what happens when this turns up in my town? What happens when this is on my streets? Because I hear about this where I'm from. So,
the fathers, by the way.
sure, of course. I place a heavy emphasis on fatherhood within the home. But you're absolutely right, madam, of course. Absolutely. Families. And what... Sure, absolutely. My mantra's family, faith, freedom, but I do put a lot of onus. I do put a lot of onus and responsibility on the father. That's just my personal stance. I understand what you're saying. That's absolutely fine. I stand by that, guys. So imagine that we live. This is again just going back to understanding it from what I've learned. Imagine that we live in an age of mass uncontrolled, unvetted, illegal immigration, the demographic makeup being overwhelmingly young, healthy men of fighting age who come from devastatingly different cultural backgrounds, backed up by communities who don't want the negative press. Now imagine it's not a nightmare you've just woken up from, instead it's something which is here, cannot be undone, is growing, and brings with it untold horror and the most severe of consequences to our children and culture. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah.
Fairly accurate? Yeah, I wrote that. That's mine. Thank you. So,
down in history.
that's the one. That's it. Okay, cool. So, I mentioned about Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, Tony Lloyd, Keir Starmer, and there was a few other people as well. So we know they're going to get away with it, okay, and the point's been made about getting involved and bringing about change. But that's 5, 10, 15 years stuff. I'm not saying that it's overnight. I mean, it can be quicker than that. But the reality is we need to start addressing the head of the snake. Again, it's not political. I have to make it political. Let me ask the question. Have left-wing run councils, MPs, governments and senior law enforcement officials been discovered as being the main most directly responsible for gross, inexplicable and irretrievable, potentially the worst case of misconduct and child safeguarding breaches in the UK, right here in the north of England? Yes. Is there a link there?
Yes. Nail on the head.
Thank you.
Amen. You're winning.
You're
saying the same thing from a different town. Yeah, yeah.
So, who saw the video of the autistic girl getting arrested the other day?
Yeah.
How many officers were there?
Disgraceful.
7? 8? Why?
Exactly.
What did she say, guys? What did she say?
Lesbian.
My mum's a lesbian like my
You look like my lesbian now. She got arrested, right? Public outrage, NFA gets slapped on it. So it's all intimidation. It's all Mickey Mouse. None of it's real. So it's political correctness gone absolutely crazy. Political correctness on steroids. Started in the 80s and the 90s, and now we have the liberal woke policy making, right? So if you're a patriot or a concerned citizen or question or challenge or in any way conservative, watch yourself, basically, yeah? It's all absolute nonsense. The point's already been made. It's about populism. It's about taking back control. It's about shifting the window. That's what it's about. I wrote down this, guys. I thought I'd just mention it. The systematic, organised child abuse was carried out here, I understand, by a demographic of men that was 2005, 2010 era. And I understand that business model has actually expanded. And actually, this is a massive abuse, is what it is, of power, because they've seen a gap where they can do what they want to do and get away with it, basically. So actually, we need to turn our heads to the reality of: is it possible that under diversity, inclusion, and equality, is it possible that people with malicious intent, the worst kind, have seen an opportunity to get away with what they want to get away with, and they know that they can do it? Is that one of the heads of the snakes that we need to address? Yeah. Is it possible?
It's a secrecy agreement that all signed into.
One of many, right? Yeah. So if there's super tough sentencing and an example is made out of these people, do you reckon that encourages them to do it more or less? Less. If there's super harsh consequences, and rightly so, for the most heinous of crimes, does that incentivize people to do it, or de-incentivize? It de-incentivizes them. So why on earth, the guys that have been arrested and charged and found guilty, they've been lately fined, they've been bailed, is that right? They've been bailed. Why? Why are they bailed? Doesn't make any sense to me at all, bearing in mind the nature of the crimes. So it's not just about police corruption or state corruption or government corruption or pointing out the left and how despicable they are, but it's also about liberal policy making and liberal sentencing and diversity, inclusion and equality quotas to make sure that the political point scoring stays on track for whoever's trying to advance or fast track their own career. This is what I want the people of Britain to wake up to and to realise. And in the corporate sector, you've got ESG as well. And if you don't know about that, that's your diversity, inclusion, equality at cultural level. But at corporate level, you've got ESG, which is just as harrowing. So I looked at the numbers. Billy helped me with that. But again, I spent hours going through it all, and I thought to myself, out of all the whistleblowers that have come forward, and all the newspaper articles, and all the videos, and the documentaries, there's two main ones, the YouTube stuff, nothing was mentioned about culture really in it. It was about the harrowing, it was about the horror, and it is horror. But what about culture? What about addressing the cultural issues behind why these heinous crimes are happening? It doesn't make any sense to go after anything around the fringe. We all acknowledge the horror, but what about the cultural element? I couldn't find a lot on it. From the whistleblowers, from the news reporters, I studied one media guy who said that he withheld the story up here because he didn't want to get told off or lose his job. And then he came forward eventually, I forget the guy's name, he actually came forward in the end and said, yeah, I should have done this and I should have done that, etc., etc. So for me, it's so important to talk about the importance of culture and how that can actually remedy some of these problems, because I believe this business model is spread throughout the UK. So I didn't hear much about culture when I was doing my research. In terms of accountability, I note the numbers that are mentioned, and I also know, and you can correct me someone if I'm wrong, but no police, government official or MP, for example, has been fired, arrested or charged. Is that right?
That is 100% right.
Is it not one? Not one.
Not
So
one.
senior law enforcement, senior government official.
Even the exit inquiry, not one arrest.
So great. So good. Well, I haven't got that wrong. Great. Okay, fine. So there's a reason why that's happened. So that goes back to the covering up and the corruption, etc., etc. So was this covering up done by the right side of the spectrum or the left side of the spectrum?
Both.
Again, I know it's both, but it's a question that we have to ask.
I'd say the Labour, if I was going to
It certainly seems to be a common pattern, but you know we'll come on to that in a minute. So I believe there's overwhelming evidence that street grooming throughout the UK is on the rise, and that it's happening in various parts. What I hear is that it's an isolated incident. That's what I hear. That's what people say. It's isolated. It's fringe.
My town's hidden.
Unreported, undetected, covered up. So then you start to go down that rabbit hole, and I think that there is a serious epidemic of this type of crime, arguably the most heinous of crimes as well. So I went through the numbers and I started finding out about these operations: Lytton, Albatross, Augusta, is that right? And then I thought, okay, fine, well there's a couple of operations there, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 operations, and then another one got mentioned a minute ago when Messenger. So hang on a minute, how much is this costing? How much is and who pays for it? You know, so hang on a minute, it's hundreds of millions, right? But why don't we just stop the problem? Why don't we just stop the problem? Why are we spending all this money on it? It's great, obviously, law enforcement do your job, but hang on a minute, it seems to be an incredibly systemic problem going on here. So that was fun reading, knowing that this is spreading throughout the UK, and it's costing an awful lot of money, and ultimately the most directly responsible people probably will end up getting away with it. We have a massive problem with our culture, huge problem with our culture. All of the apologies and the corporate pre-programmed robotic, we're doing our best and we're learning lessons. I quake with rage at that point. I can't stand it, but in the context of these crimes, absolutely, it's totally evil. So the operations I heard about: Jaguar, Clifton, Newtree, Hydrant, Augusta, Sherwood, Lytton, and that's just some of them. Hundreds of millions of pounds, taxpayer expense, and meanwhile, as I just mentioned, we saw the autistic girl getting arrested the other day. We all know about the veteran down south who got arrested last year for sharing Lawrence Fox's graphic, and there are many other examples of this two-tier policing, whereby if you say the wrong thing by the thought police, they pinch you, and then they deal with you from there. But if you're grooming children and indoctrinating children,
Oh, I wonder why.
oh, yeah, it's disgusting. I'm sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. There's no reason for it. Should never be a reason for it. There is no reason for it. It can be dealt with. It can be sorted. You need strong leadership at the helm, denouncing it and putting the money where it needs to go to make sure that the right authorities, rather than running around with fictitious nonsense ideas about so-called far right, they should actually be focusing on other areas that are actually real and actually affect people's lives irreparably forever, and is completely linked to the annihilation and destruction of our culture. That would be a good start, but yeah, maybe we'll get there one day. So I think that the business model at the moment from the law enforcement side of things is we'll let people's lives be ruined, we'll spend millions of taxpayer money on the operations, and then we'll claim we're doing a great job afterwards. That sort of sounds like the business model at the moment. Very political, pre-programmed, robotic, disingenuous. That's what it sounds like, because this shouldn't be happening, and I fear that it is a business model that's spreading throughout the UK. We know what the evils of the world are, guys: trafficking, rape, corruption, drugs. At the top of the pile is obviously the destruction of innocence, obviously abuse, neglect. These stories that happen to minors, these actions affect these individuals for the rest of their lives irreparably, forever. It massively links to their contribution later on in life, offending rates, re-offending rates. It all adds up. This is something that our grassroots are threat of and our exposure to, and it absolutely has to be condemned and dealt with. So I ask, how often is it mentioned by senior politicians? How often is it in the media? How often do we hear about it? Not often enough. Not often. Not often enough. Yeah. The BBC do a great job of reporting on it. Yeah.
Well, my children have been talking, because I feel like I've been talking for 12 to 10 years. Yeah.
So I have associates coming to me telling me about these horror stories with their daughters, and they've taken them to the station and they're told call 111 or something like that. But hang on a minute, we need to talk about grooming and what it looks like, and we need to create awareness with regards to what their tactics are, despicable as they may be. So this is kind of what I wanted to finish on here. Whilst some of the things that have been said are absolutely fantastic, I think it's very important that we talk about what grooming actually looks like in the context of these crimes that have been committed in places like Roachdale. Well, we know they prey on the most vulnerable within society. Sounds a bit like drag story, children, the innocent, right? So I'm your best friend, here's a cigarette, here's some alcohol, we're cool, you're cool. Grooming. Now at the moment I understand that grooming is illegal, however they define it, but until something happens, until there's some sort of assault or attack, you can't do anything about it through the police. So all this money that's being spent on all these operations with regards to dealing with it and issuing justice finally, why doesn't all that money and resource get put into making the British public aware of what grooming looks like? We've all done safeguarding courses. I've just done one recently for stuff that I'm involved in, like to do it, etc. But it's not mainstream. It's all below the radar. It's all insidious, yeah? So I'll give you an example, right? With one of our main campaigns at the moment, our opponents say that we're overreacting, right? And that we're bigots with our main campaign. I believe it's a slippery slope. I believe lots of things are slippery slopes. So if a girl says that this is happening, X, Y, Z is happening in the most vulnerable in society, I think it should be taken seriously. And I think law enforcement should be in place to do something about it. And I think the police have to change. The laws have to change. That if someone is quite, if you are underage and you are involved in that way of life and somebody is clearly grooming you for X, Y, Z, something needs to be done about it. Where do these people operate? Do they have so-called night jobs? Do they operate kebab stores? Do they operate taxi ranks? I don't know. Is it to do with nightclubs? Is it to do with bars? I don't know. But you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to understand that this model is crackable. It is crackable. And things can change very quickly as well. That's what I was learning when I was doing my research.
There has to be the political will.
Political will of the people and the political will of the
Smash like, share. Thank you for everyone that's commenting. Sorry, I don't talk much in this. I try and keep it quiet, but smash like and share.
Do something about it at a local level, sure. I'm one of those people that's doing something about it, but I thought it was important.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll sign up. So that's what I did. I've never had to do it before, but I actually did. I actually unpacked what we mean by grooming. You know, I don't think I've ever been groomed. I'm not sure, but I actually look at it and I did. And it's awful. It's by the back door. It's insidious. You can't see it, you can see it. It's there, but it's not there. And then when you go and do something about it, technically there's no crime. Yeah, but it's a slippery slope because look what happens afterwards, and it's the most vulnerable within society. So that's got to change at legislation level. Just a couple of closing points, guys. This is a question for you. Can we think of an agency in all of this that we're discussing, from educators to the police, that has got this right and that hasn't let the victims down catastrophically? Is there any one agency? Is there any one agency? None. Zero. Complete failure. Cover up. Cancelling. Blind eye. Corruption. Whatever you want to call it. Total devastation. Utter nonsense. Okay, so what's the root cause of this? Yeah, political correctness, diversity, inclusion, equality quotas. Sometimes it feels like it's a desire to see the indigenous suffer. Sometimes I don't really understand it. It can't all be about everyone, man, woman and child getting up and going and introducing change. We put faith in our politicians, do we not? Not anymore, but it's not an unreasonable assumption that democracy would do the hands full. We're supposed to live in a democracy where we put people in charge. That's the deal, that's what you sign up for, right? So obviously the game has shifted massively now, so I guess it's called to basically, yeah. So it's anyway, so I'm not saying that there aren't good people trying to do the right thing. I'm not saying they don't feel their hands are tied sometimes, but we've got to start asking ourselves the question. This all seems like it's definitely a move to harm us and to damage us irreparably. Morale, cohesion, collectiveness, motivation, you know, everyone's miserable, it's awful, it's hard, blah blah blah, etc, etc. So yeah, it definitely seems like that. But I've asked you guys a few questions, and to be fair, you've answered them. Again, I'm learning as I go here. It's been so fantastic to come and speak and to hear other people and what they've had to say. There's a lot more for me to learn, and I'd happily come back and speak again. Last but not least, I want us to just think for a second, imagine a world where, you can tell I've got a bit of an issue with this political correctness stuff. Imagine a world where political correctness and a willingness to destroy the nation from within, diversity, inclusion, equality, etc, etc, corporate ESG governance trumps those values and that political agenda trumps justice, fairness, and the protection of its citizens, and most importantly of innocence. Now imagine that it's actually too late and that you're not dreaming, you haven't just woken up from a nightmare, and that it's actually here. So there can be no greater motivator to do whatever you've got to do, whenever, however. In the case of rallying, in the case of speaking with each other and networking and doing something about it, we have to unite. We have to unite and stand up for children against the evil of this world. I am so sorry for what's happened up and down the country. I am utterly appalled at what I've had to learn and research. It affects every single one of us in the UK, and I will do everything I can to partner up with Billy whenever possible to show solidarity and support to the cause. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Big thank you once again for Nick, guys. Turning Point UK. There's not a lot of truth. This is when I said to you, listen to what these people are saying. Because what they're saying is educational to you and to help prevent stuff happening in your area. Next up, I've got beach home survivor, Alan Murray. Alan's been campaigning along with myself for many years now. He's one of my heroes, and I'm absolutely made up that he's come here to speak today. So please listen to him and give him a Roachdale and open warm welcome, Alan Murray.
Thank you guys, thank you very, very much indeed. It's very, very difficult to stand up here as a child abuse survivor. You've got to remember those words when people turn around and say, are you a victim? I would never class myself as a victim because it was never my fault. I was put in harm's way. The people that went to look after me and my family had a duty of care. All my life, I've institution after institution, not only the police, the courts, every single thing that I've ever come across in my life has been adversely corrupt. I went before a judge at 6 years of age. A judge is looking down at a little boy and saying to this little boy, would you like to go to the seaside, sonny boy? Would you like to go to the seaside? The little boy's looking up at the crest, the unicorn, and the crown. He's trying to work out what the symbol is, what it all means, what these uniforms of these police officers mean. Where are they when it comes to our children? Why aren't our courts act in favour of the people? Not the corporations, not the people that make the money. Let's say, hypothetically, victims, although it's not their fault. The survivors of this never ever get remedied. I went through years and years of psychological, physical and mental abuse. carbolic soap was rubbed in my face, in my mouth, in my eyes. The bathrooms were the torture chambers where they used to beat children. They used to scrub children with 4 plumbing brushes. They used to use red carbolic soap. When they used to say to you, we'll wash your mouth out in soap, they've done it. Take my word for it. They put carbolic in children's mouths and they washed children's mouth out and they burned their eyes. They used 4 scrubbing brushes on their innocent little skin. And their skin burnt and stung for ages. They put you in shorts and slapped willy-nilly your legs, your ears, the back of your neck. They beat you with their fist. They stood on top of you. They let up against you. They did everything to physically, psychologically and mentally destroy you. Children to this day are still victims of a ruthless society that we live in today. We do live in a ruthless society. Our politicians are not fit for duty. Tories and Labour are as bad as each other. Keir Starmer, he had Jimmy Savile in his hand. It was on his desk. He let the man go. 500 victims. The House and the Parliament, 150 indecent images are seen on electronic devices and laptops in Parliament. 150,000. Our politicians are perverts. You look at the Cyril Smiths, you look at all the politicians that have been involved in Chad Heaths, your Liam Brett, you go back beyond. Look at the politicians that we've had. They've all gone through various degrees to get to where they've been and what they actually done with that. Line their pocket rather than help the people they are supposed to be there to. We've had speakers today talk about what they are actually supposed to be doing and what their actual position is in Parliament, but they don't look after our interests. They only look after themselves and their own self-interest. They're there to line their pocket. And over the last 3 years we've had a pandemic. Or a scamdemic. And with that scamdemic, in the last 3 years, you've had records and records amount of children abused. My abuse goes back historically to Beecham from the 1800s, to workhouses and everything, and the cruelty that was bestowed on children for not having the right life. You know, my father beat me at 4 years of age with a leather belt. So yes, it does happen in the home. The abuse can start at home. But you don't expect to go into state care and expect to be beaten and soul destroyed and persecuted for not being what they expect you to be. These people weren't carers, they were monsters. Save our children. Thank you, every single one of you.
Wonderful speech, Alan. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, next I want to introduce a guy who I met in Piccadilly one day, and ever since I've been hooked on this guy since, because he talks a lot of good sense. So I want to invite him up to stage, and my mate Rangi. Give a good round of applause, guys.
Wow, how am I going to follow all these great speakers? I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the road problem that I've been noticing throughout the United Kingdom. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of the corruption where I actually started to identify it. And this actually started when I actually spoke up.
Speak up, please.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Right, okay, sorry. Yeah, so my story starts from when I actually broke silence against family members who had been raping children in my local area. My own family members, when I actually stood fast and I went to the police with my siblings, a lot of mysterious things started happening. However, I'm going to, because all of this is in one nutshell, so I'm going to skip it a little bit because there's just too much. So,
louder, man, I can't hear you, I'm standing here.
Can you hear? What, do they stand in front? You might be able to hear a little bit more. Right, so in 2014, the episode started where I actually identified the corruption. And what actually happened, you know, we always talking about victims, vulnerable victims, when they speak and break silence of what has been happening to them, what actually happens. And that was actually what was taking place with my home. My children broke silence against people who had been mistreating them and abusing them. And what the social workers did, there's 2 social workers came involved, and they completely ignored me, completely neglected my children, and started to make documents like the Section 7 report. Now it's very confusing for me. How can you make a report when you haven't spoken to the parents or the children? With me understanding this was now going to be into some sort of a scam, a fraud, I put a complaint in. So I'm going to put it in both ways now. So I put a complaint in against the authorities in the first 2 weeks of their involvement. As time went on, the social workers started to go on the sick. My complaint was very simple at the beginning, that they're not listening. They haven't listened to us, they haven't heard of us, they're not doing anything. And then eventually they started bullying my daughter. My daughter actually spoke to the social workers, trying to tell them who was the perpetrator, what was actually happening. And the social workers went on some other level of sickness. They started to bully my daughter, telling them that, you know, adultery is a form of practice, this is okay. A 12-year-old girl, is this what you do to them in the school? And this is because she was on her own. So this kind of behaviours continued until obviously I started escalating the problem with the complaints. So eventually it got taken into child protection, and the reason why I went into child protection, because my daughter ended up self-harming. So now I've gone into child protection, and the false reports that they made, the first core group meetings, as you hear about them, we were actually in the core group, and the social worker that was previously involved comes in, well actually she doesn't come in, she doesn't even tell her, no, it's changed, I get a new social worker. So this new social worker comes in and she starts making allegations, and I'm like, where are they getting these allegations from? It's not true. So however, at the end of the meeting, I spent 5 minutes and I showed her some documents that I had. And when I showed her these documents, she goes, well, Mr. Latif, I'm really, really sorry. This is illegal what's happening in your case. Let me go deal with this within the next 30 days of the next core group meeting. We will have it resolved. So I said, okay. 30 days later, I go to a core group meeting, and what I find is that social worker has been removed. I'm getting told she's gone on the sack, on the sick. So I'm thinking, okay, so another social worker comes in, she tells me, making false allegations, and I'm thinking, well, I can't keep doing this. So I did the same thing with her. When I told her and I showed her the documents, she went at 30 days again, promised me 30 days, we'll sort this out. 30 days later, she's been put on the sick. Well, like this, it kept continuing. Everybody who would meet me, who would see some evidence, would get sacked, removed, or be sent on the sick. So now I'm going through a complaint procedure. So stage 2 investigating team got involved 2 years later, in 2016. 2016, they came involved, and independently they find that the social workers had been biased, have a preconceived view of Mr. Latif. They've been withholding information from the professionals to do the job, and a whole load more, as well as manufacturing documents, manufacturing concerns, because this is their speciality. So, you know, when people say they're professionals, they are professionals. They're professionals in just making any crap up just to steal your kids. So now I'm in a complaint procedure. So you need to go up these ladders, they tell you. So they find out all this, they know about all this now. Yet I've got to wait, I've got to go to an ombudsman. So I thought, okay, I'll go to the ombudsman. But during this time, they're still pulling off these fast court cases. Go in, do whatever shite they want, and you can't defend yourself, because what goes on in your complaint procedure you can't talk about in the court.
Family courts are secret.
Yes. Well, family courts are no longer secret now. Everything's coming out. Yeah, pick and choose. So this idea, the way they were doing it, I thought, okay, no problem, let's just deal with it in the the Ombudsman. Now my complaint was quite serious. It had on it that they were withholding information from the courts and other professionals. They were lying to the courts and other professionals, etc., etc. So I had to wait till the Ombudsman. Now the Ombudsman got involved in 2017 in January. However, the local authority, Middlesbrough Council, Middlesbrough Social Services, withheld the documents from him from January till late October of 17. So he's now, first time he's actually working with me is in November. Now when my daughter was being bullied, intimidated, threatened, somewhere across the line, my daughter had rang 999, Childline, NSPCC, the lot, and no aid came. The reason why no aid firstly comes is because everywhere you ring, these lot, the police and everybody else, goes and gives the same information to the same social workers who's committing perjury. Yeah. So then you've got a bit of a narcissist problem where they don't like it, so they started to bully my daughter more and more and more. But during the cross the line, my daughter started to record every time she was concerned, she was worried about what was going on around her. So now I've got to the Ombudsman in November. I shared with him 5% of my information, only 5%. Within that information, I gave him 2 recordings. So he rings me back at Christmas in 2017. He goes, Mr. Lateef, I just want some clarity. This recording I'm listening to, I'm under the impression he was recording at a particular place. I said, yeah, you're right. He goes, well, now I'm more confused. I said, why are you confused? He goes, because on this recording, there's crimes taking place on your children, in front of the perpetrator, in front of the social worker, but on the same day, the social worker is reporting them same crimes that are taking place in your home 25 miles away. So I said to him, I said, look, that's why I'm putting it through a complaint procedure. They're a bunch of idiots, lies, criminals and storytellers. So I thought, okay, we're going to deal with this. I'll give him some more information. Well, 1st of January 2018, I shared him a little bit more information. When I shared him this information, by the 2nd of January, he sends me an email, Mr. Lateef, I no longer can investigate your case as it's been passed through the courts. Now, which courts are they talking about? Because I never seen nobody. I never spoke to any judge. No judge has ever spoken about my information and my evidence. You know what I mean? So this is how they fobbed me off. So you know when you go up these ladders, you keep going up. Well, I've got to the top where you knock on the door and there's nobody home. Okay? It's all a total shite. I'm sorry about the language. Maybe I should. It's a complete farce. It's complete bullshit. It's like, you know, these police officers, the amount of times these police officers are associating themselves with social workers under fraudulent court orders. You understand? That don't exist. We could prove this now because this is what they kept telling me. Every time send the police over to intimidate me, threaten me. What the hell are you intimidating me, threatening me for? I'm trying to release information. I'm trying to report a crime. My children are trying to report a crime. But once the authorities get involved, it starts to just a cover up. One makes a mistake to cover her up, they'll make another mistake to cover up. And when a social worker gets involved, who's genuine, they sack her, remove her, and send her on the sick. I'd gone through this process, 13 social workers, 14 managers, and 5 directors. Okay? And then it come to a point where I knew this was a shit show, and I started travelling. So I started travelling to Edinburgh Police Station, I went to Sedgwick Police Station, up and down the country, because I was searching for help, because I knew Cleveland Police, we already know they're the most corrupt in the country. We already know that we have our social workers are inadequate in all areas and unfit for purpose, yet they're still dealing with our children. Who gives our children to an inadequate organisation?
I don't know how they've been getting away with it.
It's ridiculous. So it come to a point where I was so fed up of it and I didn't want to stay silent no more. And I made a video in the back end of 2019 about me breaking silence about Middlesbrough Social Services. And from that point, what actually happened, I had 99% victims coming forward, asking for help, asking for some support.
Let's all give them a wave, guys.
Everyone wave at the drone.
Yeah, maybe you want to come down a little bit, eat it a little bit more. You don't get my copies.
Might be able to hear us and do something.
Yeah. So I actually, like I say, I made a video, and when I made this video, I got 99% victims coming forward, and I realised that this is not just happening to me, it's happening up and down the country. I was aware of it, but on the magnitude I wasn't. So then I made another video to try to get some help and support. And what happened, 99% victims again. And I knew now there's a shit show that we got to deal with. Because when we're talking about community, this is my community. I don't segregate myself from town to town to town, because everything on this land in UK, we are one community, one family. So it come to a point where I thought, well, something's got to be done. I went to BBC News, I showed them the evidence, they went on the sick. See, so I got used to the idea of sending them all on the sick. So, you know, when you talk about pandemics, we got a rangdemic here, I'm sending them all.
The BBC's always been sick.
Oh yeah, they know. But, you know, when you're desperate, you try everywhere. You try knocking on every door possible. So at that point, I thought, well, nobody's doing nothing about it. I'm going to do something. So I come up with an idea. I thought, hell with this, I'll make my own news channel. So I made a news channel called LCS.news. Now, what does LCS stand for? LCS stands for liars, criminals, and storytellers. Very, very simple. I don't like to sugarcoat things. Keep it simple so people understand it. So when I actually put this together, I made another video, and I had to do this next video, which was banned on YouTube in the UK. You can actually see it on the site. This is where I actually break down this complaint procedure, and I actually show you some evidence. And this evidence, just a little bit of evidence I put on there, everybody's resigning. A lot of them. However, I thought, okay, let's just move forward. So, as I said, I was traveling. So I started traveling more now, because I started getting mothers, grandmothers, up and down the country, single in different places, and I thought, well, I don't want to stay quiet. I remember myself, what a dark place it was when I couldn't reach out to the public. I couldn't get to anybody. So I thought, hell with this, I'm going to go to everybody. So I started traveling. So now on the news channel, you can actually see it yourself. Over 277 towns and cities of victims have come forward. And that's the least of the concerns. Because when you start doing the assessments on these victims, at least 40% of them have got child sexual abuse in it that nobody wants to know. And I question all of them. Have you rang the police up? Have you told them? They said, we have. I said, when? Last year, the year before, the year before. It's like going on deaf ears.
Do you think social services is producing child porn? Because I do.
I definitely can prove that we can speak about that. Social services, it's all about demand. They create the demand. So how you create demand, you can see many parents, where one is an abuser, for example, they will always give the abuser the children. Have you noticed this? Always. And it's unbelievable. And in general, when they get involved in family matters, I've had cases where husband and wives have ups and downs. Now, every couple has ups and downs. And I realised what they do is they segregate the parents. Instead of uniting them and helping them with the issue, they separate, put them separate. They make an allegation, what's known as the DV Gateway, the Domestic Violence Program. That's because of that's where the funding comes from. So they make all these allegations on the father, and then they'll strip him from his father's rights and get him out of the way, and then they go back for the single mother with the children. Because now the mother's vulnerable even more. Because even a small woman with a husband, she's a lioness. But now you've got her on her own. So in general now, for anybody and everybody, anybody gets involved with social workers, get in touch. Because you've got to protect yourself at every stage. Record everything. You know, you might have heard about it, that you can't record. Get a clip of yourself. You're protecting yourself. Record every, and you don't need the permission. You don't need to tell them. You record it. If you need help and support, reach out. There's hundreds of people, thousands of people now, up and down the country that understand it. Actually, it's not, there's millions of people have actually been affected. It's just since now we're doing this, it's happening regularly. People are coming together. I mean, I only learned about today's event last night. You understand? And an angry gentleman, he rang me up last night, he goes, hey, this is happening tomorrow, are you available? I said, damn right I am. Because you're my community. Simple. Yeah. Well, they divide and conquer. My aim is to unite and conquer. And while we're conquering, we're doing it for the freedom of our children, for the future of our children, and we're not going to take no for an answer, including from the police. The police, I mean, let's look at it. I'm here today, as well as many others. We're talking about such things that should be reported to the police, but the police are inadequate in up and down the country. Useless, absolutely, unfit for purpose.
Take the uniforms off and go and get another job.
But there's a reason for that. You see, once upon a time, we did actually have a police force that would be helping and supporting. But now it's not our government, you see, it's a private corporation. Okay? This is they follow the corporate leaders' issues. So is social workers. So for those who don't know, social workers is not your government. It's a private corporate company. Deal with it like that. Don't think, because I used to think they were my government. You know, so I started giving them respect. The more respect you give them, the more abuse they give you. Okay? So now it's come to a point where the more demonstrations, everything I've been doing, I start bringing out the names of the chief executives, the directors. And last year something new happened, because I used to have a big van with saying Middlesbrough Social Services, liars, criminals, storytellers, child cruelty in Roachdale, and a whole load that had said on the, and that was accurate. Everything on that van is a real thing. But it actually fits in for every single person, because I understood the cases now. So in December last year, unusual what happened. I'm trying to report crimes. So the CEO of Middlesbrough Council goes for a gagging order. What the hell are you putting a gagging order on me for the crimes the social workers did? Are you stupid or something? But you see, the more it goes on, the deeper it gets. So, however, I mean, there's a couple of them that were here, like Alan, who obviously witnessed all this and obviously did the video for the whole court proceeding from the beginning to the end. It's the same crap in the civil courts. Same bullshit. Judge says one thing, and the council manufacture a complete different court order that you're supposed to go along with. Well, that bullshit is over now. They can't do anything. They're trying to gag order me. And however, while they're trying to gag me, everybody who's involved in trying to gag me before the trial resigned. They all left. I got them all, absolutely. Because the truth speaks louder than the bullshit that they give. You see, you talk about family courts, they talk about fact findings. Well, it's not. It's actually called crap findings. Okay? So this is the copy and paste. Oh, we have all this copy and paste of one document. But this is not just, like I say, social services and the police. We also know that there's charity organisations just for funding. They've been doing it. We also know about the school teachers in primary schools aiding and abetting, neglecting children deliberately. Why? Because they like rubbing shoulders with the social workers. Well, now, you know, all these school teachers, which I've also been speaking about, everybody's resigned because they think it's safe. Well, no, I'm still coming for you. What makes you think leaving your damn department's got to do with me looking the other way? You see, well, it's a mess that they've created. It's their issue, and we just need to clean up the shit. And the way we've got to do is, we now, the public, have got to come together. Regardless of our colour, creed, or religion, we need to come together, because this is a united fight. This is about the freedom for all our children. Because I remember in the 70s what it was like, in the 80s what it was like. I'm giving my age away now, aren't I? Right? It's not the same anymore. Both the public's still the same. The public are not daft. We understand. You know, we have pockets of stupidity everywhere in all walks of our communities. We have assholes. That's why all these criminals that we're talking about, rapes. We have these, but we need to come together to deal with them. Because, you know, I realised Manchester last year, I think Billy was saying that I met him in Manchester. there was a lot of people saying about Asian grooming rings, Asian grooming. Well, they never seen an Asian guy stand up neither. And when they see me, I was like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? See, now, let me tell you a big issue with the Asians. Now, the issue is this. There's more rapes taking place within our Asian community that it's very, very extremely difficult to speak up because these clowns will look the other way, the police. Okay, no, it's a fact. And with this Islamophobia and all this lot going on, people are discouraged to speak up because they're thinking that the community is going to give us a headache as well.
They cause the Islamophobia.
Absolutely, precisely. See, they're the ones that cause all these. This is about part of the divide and conquer. So a lot of people now, since I've been speaking up, through all communities are coming forward now. They don't care no more because they know if we don't put a resistance in place today, there's no future tomorrow. And if there's going to be a future tomorrow, we will stand and we will fight. And that means, including with the police, I was speaking to one of the officers earlier on, that the issue that the police have got going on at the moment is, with them completely keep looking the other way, when that tide eventually breaks, that our respect for the law, the police finishes, then what they're going to do?
They should be
now they should be supporting this, but that's why I'm going to speak loud so they can hear this. You know what I mean? Because they seem to fall on deaf ears when you talk about them. You know what I mean? We shouldn't have to be doing this. Now there's a lot of safeguarding I've got to do, otherwise I could be telling you about who's raping who, where's it happening. But who am I going to tell it to? Scooby-Dooby-Doo. And I dare say Shaggy and Scooby could probably do a better job. So this is the issue that we're having. And sooner or later we're going to start to go against the judges. Now you see, the judges are controlled. Now I want to make it very clear. Our judges are controlled in family courts by our local authorities from the documentations of manufactured crimes, manufacturing documents, manufacturing concerns, just to keep the children in care so they get a paycheck. I mean, if you didn't know, Middlesbrough, if they take a child, it costs them, or hang on, they get paid £33,000 a week to keep a child. And this is coming from your taxpayers' money. And this is the issue, people's money. So we now, the people, need to come together and start to support each other. Everything I do for free, even though we need expenses. However, I don't tell anybody to give any expenses. If they want to help, great. If you're legally qualified in anything, get in touch. Because I need your help. Because over the last, I dare say, last 8 months to 9 months, nearly 5,000 people have come forward. How is one man supposed to deal with 5,000 victims?
I'll help you.
Well, I'm good, I'm glad, because I'm getting more and more people in place, because this is happening in over 277 towns and cities. So no matter which town you're in, if I know you want to help and support, I'll get you the victims, because everybody's coming forward. We need to support each other in every single town. So the next time, if anybody does a demonstration like this, for those that are listening, if you could get off your rear, put it in gear and get here, it would really be grateful, because we're fighting for your kids and your future tomorrow.
Why don't we do a victim demonstration down in Parliament and everybody go down?
Well, you see, Parliament, I mean, I've heard about this, going to the Parliament and going to London. For me, it's going to be close, but what I wanted to be eventually doing is we need to do protests in every town and city simultaneously in one day. So let the world know what is going on in the UK. But we're talking about UK. Since I've been doing this now, I've had over 11 different countries of victims coming forward, which now I'm working with them. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America. It's just a mess. The Western nations, under the fake flag of safeguarding children, child protection, they're abusing our children. So everything that they're telling us is a load of bollocks. Simple. Load of bollocks. And all those who are doing good, if you're listening, stand fast, because what I'm doing right now is I know some of them have talked about the political top side of it. Well, what I'm doing is I'm taking the legs from underneath them. Every single social worker, team manager, director, your names are going to be on a goddamn billboard in broad daylight. I'd like to see what you're going to do. What are they going to do? All they could do is, oh, let's get a gagging order. Stick your gagging order somewhere as well. Wait till I get a right judge, an independent judge, they'll see what I've got. And actually, I don't even need to show him it. For my job today is to let the public know, so if you want to see evidence and if you're curious about this kind of stuff, come forward. You know, they say curiosity kills the cat. Well, I'm slaughtering the cats at the moment. Just come forward, we'll give you the evidence, we'll show you it, you can have a look. You go in the channel and have a look at the videos itself. But my evidence is just one piece. There's thousands of pieces of evidence in everybody's case. It's just they tell you to go through a complaint procedure, which is a fraud. So this is a complaint procedure designed while they abuse your children. You got to go through a complaint procedure. Yeah. What kind of load of, you know what I mean? It's just absolutely diabolical. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm really grateful. My channel is www.lcs.news. And you can have a look on that. If you want to contact me, you can contact me through there. If you want to help and support, if you've got any form of experience in safeguarding children, child protection, or your experience in law, come forward. We're just inundated with the issue at the moment. Sorry? I've travelled from Cleveland, Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough is the root cause of it. Now let me quickly finish off the root cause, what I mean by the root cause, or ground zero. You see these social workers, when they cop, you know, we've got a saying, cop with your pants down. When they get caught, these authorities have got to set up, what they do is, when they're committing perjury, they do it so much, and then they send them to another department. They do the same thing there, and then go to another department, because this is to do with bonuses now. You see, when them children eventually go into adoption, there's a bonus fee. If you didn't know about it, I can give you the evidence for this. For one child, £27,000. And up to, I think it's 5 children, it's £85,000 bonus. And if it's above that, it's what's known as it's negotiable. Isn't this business terms? So, but we know it's a business, you see. It's a corporate organization, it's child trafficking. Absolutely. So now, where I am over since the last 6 months, even my director, which is on my billboard, her name is Sue Butcher, has fled. Why? Because I've realized what the social workers or the directors are doing, everywhere they go, they open in a foster care home. And when they open the foster care home, in the social services, they steal all your children from their foster care home.
Why do they not want the damaged children? Why do they only
well, now let me tell you something. Now, if they really want to deal with crimes, we've got evidence on all these social workers, what they do to other people's children. You need to go and take their children. You want to do buzzing business? Go take their children. You want police officers who are being aiding and abetting and allowing this? Go take their children. But no, it's one piss pot that they're pissing, and they just don't know how to deal with the rest of it. Sorry about that, I'm going on with it. Thank you very much.
Guys, one more time for Rangi, guys. One more time. Massive thank you, Rangi. Okay, next I've got a very special friend of mine called Andy Marie. She's very nervous, but please, guys, give her the warmest of welcome.
Thank you. I just want to say very firstly, thank you so much, Billy, for letting me have a voice here today.
We all have a voice.
Yeah, all of us together. Thank everyone for turning up, everything, all of that, right? Yeah. But I'm just going back a bit. My story. Okay, I'm from Roachdale. No, I don't have a Roachdale accent. When I was 16, I moved to London. But I was brought up here in Roachdale. We lived in the flats, Failing flats, and then at 6 years old, something very bad happened to me, which put me on fight or flight. So I know what it's like to go through abuse, not by my family, neighbour. So anyhow, when I got to about 11, 12 years old, I was a gymnast and I was a dancer, so I was quite, you know, I was a tomboy. I looked like a boy. I wouldn't say I was like a tomboy. Let's face the facts. I look like a boy, yeah? So And we used to be playing, doing cartwheels outside my house on Ripperton Street. And every night I used to see a car come in, used to drive up to Foxhole's Children's Home, yeah, and then drive down my street. Nothing other than Cyril Smith. Now, I wasn't going to mention Cyril Smith today, but seeing as that Billy mentioned it, and I'm from Roachdale, and I haven't lived here since I was 16, but all my family are here, my sister's here, you know, this is where I belong, okay? This is where I feel at home. And the reason why I've survived so long is because I'm from here, yeah? It's because I'm from Roachdale, why I've become as I am. I'm a fighter for the kids, yeah? I'm a fighter for children in care. I don't give a damn. I've got a criminal record now for child abduction on my own daughter. She was 14 and ran home. Does that make sense? No. Well, what do children do? They talk with their feet, yeah? This system, where the police are complicit, and what Randy was saying about social workers is disgraceful. Amy, thank you so much for calming me down and giving me a hug there, because I was very nervous. I've never been as nervous as I have in my own town, because I know what people are like in my own town. You are strong, and you're Lancashire, and you're born and bred, and I'll tell you what, don't mess with these lot, I'm telling you. I'm with the Southern Softies down there, mate, I'm telling you. I love being home, but you know, we have to talk about this, and it is a serious matter. Cut 2. Cyril Smith driving past the house, and he used to my mum cut my hair in short. I begged her, Mum, cut my hair short, She's like, no, you look like a boy. Well, I did, she did it, she would shut me up. Anyhow, Cyril Smith then used to drive past my house, and as he drove past, he used to look at me, and that face, I'll never forget his face, and he used to wave at me. Cyril Smith, and I used to look at him and go, and wave back. And I used to say to my mum, Mum, Cyril Smith just waved at me. And she was like, oh, give him a wave back. I was 11 years old. Little did I know that he was going down to Foxhole's Children's Home, yeah? He was going up a little play with them. Then he used to come and see me, think I'm a little boy, and he was grooming me. It wasn't until my hair started to grow back, I would never forget the day. He went like that to look at me, to wave at me, and he saw that I was a girl, and his face was like, he was disgusted that I was a girl. I saw, he was like, ugh. He was like that. So there you go. So then I moved to London, and then, I'll just say my name, social services, yeah? My daughter, because of what happened to me when I was 6 years old, they used that against me. I was abused at 6 years old. They used it against me to take my daughter off me. My son now is 28. But I got very sick. I got unwell. I needed a little bit of support. My daughter was taken from me. And when she's 12 years old, she's got ADHD, oppositional defiance disorder. She was climbing down the balcony. She was getting on the back of solar mopeds. I was like, oh my God. My son was meant to do this, not her. But the social services said to me, no, it's not her ADHD, it's because she was abused when you were 6 years old. I said, what? Because when I was 6 years old, she's jumping down the balcony and going off into the night and like robbing. No, it's her ADHD, she's been diagnosed with it. And like Billy said, it would have been special needs. They were like, no. They wanted to undiagnose her because they wanted the money for her. It's all about money, guys. That's why they're all complicit. That's why the police are not listening. They're all stand there and just talk around. It's all like, it's a £1 billion business. It's a business, yeah? Nothing more, nothing less, okay? They get 38,000 per child they take into care. 38,000. The social worker gets a bonus, yeah? Because they've got to meet quota. They've got to meet quota, so they've got to put a certain amount of children into care, so the local authority get the money for it. It's as simple as that, guys. I don't get into politics. I've never voted in my life. I can't stand both sides because I've always known it's a higher government, okay? But this is agenda. All this, there's a divide and conquer agenda that's been spoken about. There's, you know, the children are a commodity. Do you know, it used to be, I think it was pornography used to be the highest amount of money and firearms. Do you know what's the most money now? Child trafficking. It's the biggest earner in the world at the moment. Children are a commodity. Thanks, sis. Roachdale! Yeah? I was like a lioness. Lioness, Billy Ben. Sorry, don't leave me laugh. Yeah, I was like a lioness with a cub. I hid my door everywhere. If I'd not witnessed what I'd witnessed, I wouldn't believe it. If someone came up to me in the street and said, they don't give a shit about the kids. She was groomed. My daughter was groomed in care. My daughter's come back to me with a scar down her face, yeah? Groomed by a South African, Edwin Mutabri. I'm going to sue your ass, boy. I ain't forgot about you. I'm just letting my baby girl settle in back home from the care system that nearly killed her, yeah? At one point, she lost all her hair through the stress. She got alopecia. She said her hair will never grow back. She's beautiful, my daughter. Beautiful. Aisha. In fact, Randy and I, we've got the same name, our daughters, the same name, and they're born the same days. It's just unfathomable, that. But, you know, she nearly died in that system, guys, and I was just, you know, I thought, at one point, I looked at her and I thought, she was about 5 stone, she'd lost all her hair, my heart was broken. I'm a mum, I'm a mother. Well, what are they doing? I said, let her come home. Let her come home. So eventually, when she was 16, they let her come home. Do you know what social services did? They went and got a secret doors order and they sectioned her up in Leeds, so from London, because the police agreed my daughter was safe with me. That's what they're doing, guys. Children that run home now, they're sectioning them. So they're setting them up to fail, so they can earn money off them in the future. And they can say, well, your kids are now at future risk of harm, so we're going to take your children. If my daughter gets pregnant now, she's 19, she wants to have a baby, she can't. Well, you can't have a baby. Can you imagine that? As a woman, it's hard as a woman if you know, in natural circumstances you can't have a child. Yeah? But can you imagine because you was let down by this system in this country? And then you can't have a child because they're going to come and steal your child for money when you've been through all that. It's a mess, guys. It's an absolute mess. It's a joke.
People need to do the job.
They really do.
And be held accountable. Yes.
See what I'm saying? The secure units. Yeah. My sister came with me.
Older men that were grooming me, but they put me in.
Oh, God bless you, darling. God bless you. I'll come and give you a hug after this. No, God bless you, lovely. I am, you know, the 3 girls in Roachdale, you know the Netflix documentary. I'm from Roachdale, and everyone was saying, oh, the documentary. I was like, what documentary? I watched a documentary about the 3 girls. And it only turns out, on my TikTok, I was actually supporting one of them. But like Billy was saying, it's not one of the 3 girls, it's one of the other girls. There weren't just 3 girls, there were many, many girls. 49. And 49, there you go. 49. And yeah, 49 girls. There weren't just 3 girls, there's 49. And this is where these people hang out. Whether what culture they're from, because I'm not going to be, you know, yeah, grooming gangs, pedophiles, nonces. And no, we're not calling them minor attractive people. A nonce is a nonce. Yeah. I'm sorry, they're not getting that minor attractive person. They can sit back right where the sun don't shine, I'm telling you now. Yeah? They ruin lives. They ruin lives. Okay? Minor attractive person. Do you remember, Angie? We were in London doing a protest, yeah? And I said nonce, and this guy walked past me. Minor attractive person. We actually got heckled. I was like, oh my God, this is real. This is actually real. A minor attractive person, you know, I watched a documentary last night. And they were saying, you know, we've got to understand more why, you know, they're attracted to children. It's because, you know, they've watched porn and, you know, they don't get the buzz from porn anymore. So, you know, they have to take it that little bit further and they have to watch children. Piss off. No way. Yeah, that's no excuse for destroying a child's life and getting your little pleasure. Yeah, we're not going to sympathise with you, nonsense. Sorry, not today, not ever. Not in my book, anyhow. Yay. Not in my book. No chance. I'm keeping it short and sweet because I know you've all been here a long time now today. Just keep praying for the kids, you know, they're very special. Everybody here today cares about children, every single person, even if you haven't come up and stood here, you're on it because you care about the next generation that's coming up. The next generation, they need us. And we're, you know, people just keep coming to these events. Thank you, Billy, for letting me speak. I'm going to get down now and shut up. God bless everyone. God bless.
Wow, yeah, so Andy Marie, ladies and gentlemen, please give her another. That's not easy to talk about. Okay, the next person we're invite up is Mr. Peter Brown. So please give Roachdale welcome. He's from Oldham.
I'm going to get a couple minutes of this guy. I'm probably going to leave halfway through this, guys. We've got somewhere to be. So sorry, I'm going to have to finish the live stream before it's actually finished.
It started when people spoke up, and it's escalated, and the corruption and the cover-up has gone higher, higher and higher. Now I've just heard that the people who were gagged, such as me, for 12 months by Oldham Council for raising concerns, has been released after 12 months. Now I'm hoping that my gagging order has been removed. But regarding the police's role in this cover-up, Oldham Police, in partnership with Oldham Council, in covering up the CSE. It's absolutely despicable on how far this kiddie-tickling sleaze has gone on. It's called kiddie-tickling, and it's by the hire of a fire who think that their position, money, responsibility can keep them out of harm's way. It's absolutely despicable. But regarding 3 protests that I've done in Oldham Town Centre outside our main police station, where it's done a runner now, or he's been moved, Commander Chris Bowen. Commander Chris Bowen. And what I stated was to Commander Chris Bowen is, I despise your role where your partnership is regarding the cover-up of CSE with the Oldham Town's children. You despicable lot. Now I know within the police officers there are good and bad. And on the Jeremy Vine programme last year, 2021, because if you Google Oldham Police Station protest 2021, it shows myself, my friends, outside the first protest condemning Commander Boyd and the close partnership, the collusion between GMP Police and Oldham Council. Now, it's absolutely despicable, but we haven't just been gagged. I think there were 15 of us. 15 of us were gagged for holding our council, and GMP took account. Now, the worst thing is that I've given Billy letter to the Bishop of Manchester, the Bishop of Manchester, the Church of England, who covered up and protected the paedophilia, child tickling clergy. They protected them. Now, while we were gagged in Oldham, they had the Reverend Canon Jean Earlston, the eyes and the ears for the Bishop of Manchester, who sat there with all the highly paid council officers, head of the child services, and she sat there watching. She was the eyes and the ears to the Bishop, and yet people who stood up and held that council to account were gagged. Now, I wrote a letter in March by 4 signatures, a gentleman ex-army, full-time service, active service, children of his own, and others were gagged. Now, the Bishop never replied. Now, Billy's got the reply from the Bishop of Manchester a fortnight ago, and I invited the Archdeacon, David Sharples, Archdeacon of Roachdale, to attend. Now, whether he's attended, I don't know, but when I've read that letter, I said to the Bishop's office that the Manchester Cathedral at the front is now under imminent threats of protest. How dare you
as the Bishop of Manchester who protected your own paedophilia clergy. Known, it were all publicised. Not just the Church of England, the Roman Catholics. Now I'm a practising Roman Catholic. I'll be going to Mass tonight, for my own personal view. And I said to one of my parish priests, I said, you know the worst thing the Catholic Church ever did? He said, what's that, Pete? I said, you covered up the paedophilia. You covered it up. You're a disgrace.
It is disgraceful.
Now regarding this letter, he never replied. In fact, I don't know if Billy can hand it me.
It's in the shelf folder. It's in the paedophile.
So, we never got a reply in March this year from the Bishop of Manchester. So I wrote again on the 16th of the 7th this year. Dear Right Reverend David Walker, Bishop of Manchester, it has been several months since the Archdeacon of Roachdale, David Sharples, contacted you.
I'm going to end the stream there. Thanks for watching, guys. Count Jules, I did see the tagging. I've not had a chance to check it out yet, but I'll check it out when I'm on the tram home. Yeah, I'll let you know what I think about it. Smash like, share. I don't know when highlights will be out for this. I've been pretty busy recently, so please let me know. Any other protests coming up? Thanks for watching, like and share.
Stated in the letters, on the questions, we're waiting for your answers. It is in my opinion